Welcome back. When they are abroad, the one thing that Singaporeans say they miss the most is definitely
the food. It's the food. It's the food. The dishes like char kway teow, the chicken rice, the nasi goreng, the nasi lemak, the roti prata. I could go on.
You could go on. It's no surprise that Singapore-born, Brooklyn-based writer and food blogger Cheryl Lulian Tan is making her book debut with, of course, a food memoir.
So she's in studio today to tell us more about that and how she's eating and cooking her way through the writing as well. Yeah, some writing as you eat. There's a lot of research involved, right?
Yes, it's mostly eating, I think, so far.
I was saying, you've got an ideal job coming back to Singapore and researching.
That's very true. I've been very fortunate this year.
But it's quite actually hard to write about food. I mean, I'm thinking of the local fare, the hawker food. We all kind of know it because as Singaporeans, you grew up with it. But to then put it into words, describe it to someone who's never heard, I mean...
It's true. Trying to explain Singaporean hawker food to Americans is difficult. And I just always end up saying, you just have to come here and eat it. There's no substitute for it in the States.
Yeah. How do you describe the smell and the atmosphere as well?
I usually tell them, if you go to a place and you have air conditioning or nice seats, just don't eat there. Like, it's got to be on the sidewalk, the chair has to stick to your legs, like, that's the best thing.
We have improved slightly. Now, you can go to places with air conditioning. But let's talk a bit about how you got to writing for food. I mean, prior to that, you were a fashion writer for the Wall Street Journal.
Yes. Well, I did write a little bit about food before that, too. Food has always been a passion of mine. I've always wanted to learn how to cook, but, you know, when you grow up here, it's so easy to just eat out that nobody cooks, really. And so once I moved to the U.S., I started to really long for food here. And I started to try to teach myself how to make some dishes, but, you know, when you're sort of winging it, you can't really replicate that. So, so I wrote a story about trying to learn my grandmother's pineapple tarts. And so that really made me think about wanting to do this, which I've been very fortunate to do.
Okay, so who else do you learn how to cook from when you come back to Singapore and do your research?
Well, my grandmother, and on my mother's side, and then my aunts on both sides, and my mom as well. So I've been learning how to make, I've been trying to hit the major festivals, and I've been learning like beng kueh, bajang, mooncakes. My family is fearless in the kitchen, so they, you know, if you name it, they know how to cook it. So they've been really great.
Is that the same for you? Are you a whiz at cooking?
Well, I'm not quite sure.
That's why you're writing about it.
I'm very passionate about it. I'm not sure if I'm that good, but I love to bake, and in the U.S. I try to learn, you know, like to make chili or lasagna.
Well, what's your
or that kind of
specialty
thing.
then?
I would say cookies are my main thing. And also, you know, that sort of ties in with my late grandmother on my dad's side. She was a really great baker. And so all my life, she died when I was very young. So all my life I really wanted to learn how to bake, mostly because I remembered when I was growing up, I would love her pineapple tarts. I loved like all these cookies that she would make. And so that really stuck with me. And I always regretted that I never took the time. You know, when you're a kid, it's like you rather read a book than, you know, spend time in the kitchen. So I always regretted that I didn't learn from her. So now I'm spending that year doing that.
So no doubt you have a lot of willing test tasters in back home. What's their kind of, I guess, their opinion of your cooking skills and Singapore food in general?
Well, my Singaporean friends or my U.S. friends?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
I know, my Singaporean friends are more fussy, but so far they've liked everything we've done. My friends have really liked, but they've tried my ota, my family's ota, which they liked, and ngoh hiang as well. So so far so good. I've not killed anyone yet.
I'm not even going to try to describe those dishes to our regional audiences because it would just be too difficult. Just know that it's a unique dish. But it's true. There's no Singaporean in the country who will say, when you say, oh, I know this really great char kway teow, they go, no, I know a better one at this place, right? You know?
It's true. All we do is talk about food. And you know, when I first moved to the U.S., I still remember someone had set up this very basic website, and all they did was put pictures of Singaporean food up, like chicken rice, char kway teow. And I used to sit there, I used to log on every day just to look at these pictures because I missed home so much.
In a way, I mean, do you think it's a form of therapy for all those people who leave Singapore, go to another country, they just have to, you know,
it's true,
talk about what they miss?
It's true. We always, the Singaporeans and my Singaporean friends in New York always joke that, you know, we miss food first and our family second. Obviously, that's not true, but
they come together. They're on par.
Yes, exactly.
There you go, because you have food and family at the same time.
Yes.
But who is your book targeted at then, do you think?
Well, it's really, you know, I was thinking when I was pitching the book at first, will Americans really understand Singaporean food? And I think that there's a real universality in the story that I'm trying to tell, which is the connection between food and family, and learning about your family stories by cooking with the women in your family. And that's something that I think a lot of people feel in their lives, because when I wrote a story about learning about my grandmother's pineapple tarts, I got emails from all over the world saying, you know, I just remember my grandmother's sugar cookies. My dad made the best, you know, chili sauce, and I just never learned it. So I think everybody has a story like that. So it's really targeted at everybody.
It's always home-cooked food, or, you know, your mother's food. That's always the best thing you've had. And maybe that's because as a kid we grew up with that. And that's the earliest memory we have, is it?
It's always what you grew up eating first and loving, I think. And then it brings back all the memories, and, you know, whenever you eat that food, you're going to think about that time.
And how's your experience as a fashion writer helped you with writing this book, do you think?
Well, you know, journalism is journalism, so, you know, whether you're reporting on what people are wearing or what people are putting in their bodies, like that's, you know, that's probably the same thing. But you know, I always tell people that they're two completely different industries, and it's been very interesting to you know, sort of be in both, which is, you know, which has been a lot of fun.
Although for food, a lot of times I think some of the best dishes don't look so great. You know, I mean, especially for the local food we have here, some of them, you look at it and you think, oh, I don't know what to expect. You don't know what to think, and then you bite into it and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And when I started doing this, especially, I take my own pictures as I go along, and I would look at my pictures and go, why does this look so horrible? You know, it tastes so good, but if I were to present it to someone, they wouldn't eat it. But, you know, after a while, you know, I think you just have to sort of get over looks.
Yeah, and every time you come back to Singapore, I mean, does anything surprise you, or do you learn new things that you never thought you knew about Singapore food?
Yeah, I'm always learning something new. I mean, you know, there's always some hawker that you've never been to. If you tell someone that you went to have great soup kambing, someone will have, like, you know, a better place that, you know, they say you have to go to. So I'm always discovering something new in Singapore. And this time especially, you know, my friends' mothers and my friends of friends have been very, very excited about my project. And so they've been like, hey, you want to learn how to make masak merah, or you want to learn how to make, you know, chicken curry, you know, let me know, like, you know, come into our kitchen.
Yeah. Well, cooking is one of those things where, again, practice does sort of make it perfect.
I'm just interested to know, actually. I mean, in America, I don't know, is Singapore food popular there?
It's popular. It's getting popular because, you know, the New Yorker and the New York Times have written about it, and so people are getting more aware of it. So they do it, but not very many people cook it at home because I think there's so many ingredients. It's a little hard. It's a little time-consuming. Yeah. So you really have to set aside some time for it.
Yeah. Now they have those pre-mix. You just buy the whole thing, add the chicken, and it becomes chicken curry. And you're
That's
like,
right.
Yeah, those are really good.
That's cheating, though.
Oh, come on, same thing. What's your favorite dish, Yvonne?
Oh, I have lots, and I never stop trying all these new dishes.
There's no one that stands out for you? No,
no, I don't have one particular favorite.
Okay.
What about you?
I like the oyster omelette.
Oh,
A lot, yeah. That's and there are different versions of it, but the more unhealthy, the more, you know, the lard, the fried lard. And,
I'll have to find out from you later which store is your favorite.
And we'll be speaking to Cheryl Lulian Tan on her forthcoming food memoir, Tiger in the Kitchen, which will be published early next year.
If you'd like to follow her on her culinary adventures, she has a website. It's tigerinthekitchen.com, of course.
That's right, so take a look there. On that note, we're going to wrap up the show for this Tuesday, 16th of February. We hope you're still enjoying the festivities, but you want to join us tomorrow because, you know, some people say there's certain times when you want to invest in property, but one guy says, never a bad time.
Anytime. We speak to an expert on investing in Asia, so you don't want to miss that.
That's right, and Joanne there will also speak to the Princess of Kuwait to get the stories behind some magnificent artifacts from the Mughal Empire. So all that happening tomorrow right here on Primetime Live.
Have a great day.
Good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.